starting here on your right, and tell us who you are and what you're here for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Dr. James Gottschall, physician in Lafayette. A fundamental tenet of the practice of medicine is the right of every patient to free and informed consent and bodily autonomy. This was emphasized throughout medical school at LSU in New Orleans, as well as residency at Vanderbilt University. I believe that vaccines play an important role in society. My wife and I participated as subjects in a medical trial to determine stockpiled smallpox vaccine efficacy during our residency at Vanderbilt. Even if the COVID vaccines were 100% safe and effective, the right of each individual, or parents in the case of children, to make medical decisions regarding their bodies would be paramount. Why are these vaccines any different? If government bureaucrats can force or coerce anyone to receive this vaccine, where does it stop? The vaccine preventable requirement has been discussed, and for the sake of time, I'll just say that we hear many more breakthrough infections for COVID than any of the already listed vaccine preventable diseases. Medical decisions are based on a risk-benefit analysis for each individual. Unfortunately, we have no long-term data on COVID vaccine safety or efficacy. It doesn't exist. It cannot exist. The vaccines have been widely available for less than a year, and COVID-19 has been identified as a human pathogen only about 2 years. Specific COVID-19 vaccine development could only begin within the last couple of years. There can be no long-term safety data. There can be no long-term efficacy data. None of the currently available COVID vaccines contain a protein or attenuated viral antigen to provoke an immune response, like traditional vaccines. This one is different. It relies on your body to produce the antigen. Therefore, long-term effects of these unique COVID vaccine formulations are unknown. There is currently no FDA fully approved COVID vaccine on the market in the United States. Pfizer is still technically under EUA. The FDA granted full approval to Comirnaty, however you're supposed to say that, not Pfizer. Why can't we get our hands on the FDA-approved vaccine? Could it be the liability shield provided by the EUA? Regardless, given that nobody can receive the FDA-approved vaccine, is it legal for our governor or any politician to require a vaccine not approved by the FDA? Which is the practical impact of this rule, even though the FDA says they can be used interchangeably. I'm not a lawyer, but shouldn't the legal requirement of full FDA approval recognize the practical and legal distinction asserted by the FDA? Even if a practically available COVID vaccine did get full FDA approval, while reassuring, unfortunately it's not an absolute guarantee of safety or efficacy. Many drugs have been pulled from the market due to safety or inefficacy concerns. It's not just a few, but go ahead and name a few that you may have heard of. Accutane, Baycol, Bextra, Dorvacet, Redux, Celdane. Some vaccines have also been recalled to include a swine flu vaccine in 1976 and a late 1990s rotavirus Rotashield vaccine associated with intussusception. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Dr. George Waterfallen. I was an emergency medicine physician for 38 years, and for the last 4 years, I've practiced as a family practitioner in a local clinic in Shreveport-Bossier area. I'm here to adamantly oppose vaccine mandates in children. CDC data reveal more than 300 children between the ages of 12 and 18 have died from myocarditis, a now recognized side effect of COVID vaccine. Yet the shot is now authorized for children as young as 5. Since COVID vaccines do not prevent infection, but only lessen symptoms, they are actually a treatment, not a prevention. And there are far safer and effective treatments available. Dr. Michael Yaden, former vice president of Pfizer, said internationally, for every one child that dies during COVID, naturally of COVID, 100 will die from the vaccine. What that means is the vaccine is 100 times more lethal than the natural virus you're trying to protect your child from. According to the CDC, healthy children that are 18 or younger that get COVID have a 99.998% of recovery without treatment with only minor symptoms. This means COVID-19 is safer in children than the influenza virus. The best way to avoid illness, injury, and death is prevention. In the case of vaccine mandates for children, I believe it means do not give this vaccine to our children. After a career in emergency medicine, I have no desire to see any more injured or dead children. It's heartbreaking to even see one dead child. There's nothing good about a dead child. We must consider the risks versus benefits of these COVID vaccines for children. Following the advice of King David in Psalms, turn away from bad, do good, and live. Turn away from bad means don't give in to the fear, don't give in to the isolation, and don't take the vaccine. Or you can take it, but leave the kids alone. Do good means if you're in a high-risk category, take viral prophylaxis. If you get sick, seek early treatment. If we do all these simple things, we will live. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter I had an opportunity to visit with today with my son in New Orleans, and I've told my son she would have a great new world to grow up in. Please reject this rule change and make that possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes. State your name, please.
Bert Calais, Burley, Louisiana. Prior service military, took the oath of office. Hasn't expired. Phone number 1-800-256-2748 is not being discussed. It should be posted on public buildings, medical facilities, in schools, anywhere and everywhere possible, because you're getting skewed data if no one reports or don't know how to report an injury. And I'm speaking...
Let me interrupt. We're not here to discuss that. This rule is the only thing we're talking about, and you're taking other people's time that's trying to kill this rule as we have a motion before the group. So please
I'm getting to the point.
Okay.
Mr. Bagley. Now, my son was injured from vaccines 20 years ago. I wish I would have had this phone number back then, because we were isolated. We didn't know what to do. Fortunately, thanks to my wife, who spoke to someone and had an open mind enough to look into it, we were able to at least eradicate some of the issues that he was having, which wasn't able to hold down food, extreme amount of mucus, couldn't speak. When he was doing okay before, but after a certain round of vaccines, he was injured. We were able, fortunately, to reverse that, okay? And he's a productive citizen. Whereas before, he was struggling, learning everything, speaking, all that. And so I stumbled across this document, and it's ELC reporting for schools, support for screening, testing, and all that. And what I see in here has nothing to do with actual health. This is from, for the LDH to look at, or they're presented. It talks about $10 billion, and then it talks about another $30 billion, and then it talks about technology, it talks about computers, it talks about vans, transportation, it talks about hotels and those kinds of things, but nothing in here is about actual health. So, and then I sat here and I watched Mr. Kennedy give his testimony and what he knew, and this was Pfizer's actual data, okay? And then for him, Mr. Cantor, I think, Dr. Cantor, say that that's totally wrong. That's Pfizer's stuff. So one thing here is happening is if Pfizer's putting out wrong information, we need to quit listening to them. But if the information is correct, okay, it needs to be considered. So what are we going to be doing about that? So we're sitting here listening to Pfizer, because I see them with commercials all the time on television. Take the shot, right? But we don't have, anytime anybody speaks out about the type of information that we heard just now and from Mr. Kennedy, that is suppressed. And because of that, and like I said, I've learned a lot. I'm educated a lot myself, a lot in this, because I had a personal injury in my own household, and we had no help, none. No insurance, they didn't cover it. or any of that kind of thing. When these kids get injured, and we're talking about more kids getting injured than actually sick from the disease. So the cure is worse than the actual disease. What are we doing? I don't agree with I'm not for passing any of this kind of stuff. We really need to be looking at it the other way around and protecting ourselves from this vaccine instead of worrying about COVID.
Thank you, sir. Time's up.
Thank you.
All right. Give me, I